all of our guests around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Felicia Farber, Chair of the Institute of Dispute Resolution Steering Committee for Programs and Thought Leadership Experiences. On behalf of our Institute of Dispute Resolution team, steering committee members, global panelists, and all of our sponsors, I am extremely proud to welcome you to today's International Business and Mediation Live Digital event, Building the Future of Global Business, Enhancing Growth and Investment Through Mediation. This special program is presented by the Institute of Dispute Resolution, IDR, at New Jersey City University School of Business in partnership with the International Mediation Institute, Srdjan University, Budapest Conciliation Board, affiliated with the Budapest Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Croatian Mediation Association, Georgian Bar Association, EBA Mediation and Arbitration Center, New Jersey State Bar Association Dispute Resolution Section, the Justice Marie Garibaldi American Inn of Court, and the New Jersey Association of Professional Mediators. Today's program was created and developed by Professor David Weiss, the founder and director of the Institute of Dispute Resolution and the Connecting Bridges and Borders program through business at NJCU. Professor Weiss also teaches global business at the NJCU School of Business and heads their Bachelor of Science in Entrepreneurship. Under the directorship of Professor Weiss, one of the primary missions of the IDR is to use soft diplomacy as a way to apply mediation to aid cross-border business and create opportunities and support for foreign direct investment. By promoting business collaboration through international mediation and negotiation practices, the IDR has established itself as a leader in fostering global trade and commerce through entrepreneurship and innovation. It is recognized for its involvement around the globe in assisting cross-border stakeholders in the promotion of sustained economic and commercial success rooted in foreign direct investment. Specifically, the IDR strives to advance self-determination values through the concepts of mediation theory by bringing together stakeholders in business, government, and academia. Our program today is aimed at promoting global trade and commerce by applying mediation and negotiation modalities. We want to better manage disputes and associated risks, increase collaboration, exchange ideas and information, and give everyone at the table an equal voice in a fair, respectful, and diplomatic setting. For businesses, corporations, and institutions of all sizes, whether local or international, I don't think it's even a question that mediation is a superior way of resolving disputes. Mediation and other amicable settlement techniques should be the first instruments for the management of conflicts. What makes mediation different from other forms of conflict resolution is that it's a voluntary process where the stakeholders are free to craft their own tailor-made solutions to address their unique interests and concerns. In no other dispute resolution process is there an emphasis on providing the stakeholders with a safe and confidential, pressure-free environment where a trained neutral facilitates the stakeholders in finding more economical, prompt, and mutually advantageous resolutions to preserve their business and personal relationships. I always say that cases settle because of expense and exposure. Business disputes especially can take a lot of time, cost a lot of money, and be fraught with risk. The goal is to resolve these disputes in the fastest, most economical, and efficient manner possible. Early settlement not only saves money, it saves reputations and relationships. In more traditional methods of dispute resolution, like litigation and arbitration, there's a winner and a loser. A judge, jury, or arbitrator evaluates the dispute and determines the fate of the stakeholders. There's no flexibility, and it's certainly not consensual. One of the biggest advantages of mediation is that stakeholders can eliminate the risks and control their own outcomes in ways that best satisfy their needs and that make the most sense to them. Nothing is imposed upon them. In our Building the Future of Global Business event today, you will learn from each of our esteemed panelists who represent the 4 nation states of Hungary, Republic of Croatia, Republic of Georgia, and the United States, what is happening in the mediation space in their regions of the world. You will get a unique global perspective of how mediation can be utilized in the growth and enhancement of cross-border commercial business and foreign direct investment. You're going to have the opportunity to hear from the micro level to the macro level about how companies and people around the globe are adapting to changes brought about by the recent legislation in the United States, the New Jersey International Arbitration, Mediation, and Conciliation Act, and the new international agreement regarding the recognition of mediated settlements, the Singapore Convention on Mediation. At this point, and of course, we just had last minute, we are absolutely thrilled to announce that His Excellency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade for Hungary, Peter Szijjártó, is going to be joining us as our keynote speaker. So to begin our program, I am very proud to introduce to you Dr. Sue Henderson, the president of New Jersey City University. She has been the president since 2012 and is responsible for so many incredible accomplishments at the university, including creating the NJCU School of Business, adding numerous academic programs, spearheading a major redevelopment project, and implementing a program to make students' college educations accessible and affordable. On behalf of the Institute of Dispute Resolution, I'd like to personally thank President Henderson for supporting Professor Weiss, the IDR team, its students, and the IDR mission and vision to advance mediation internationally through the prism of soft diplomacy. Dr. Henderson.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to see people from around the globe, and what you represent is precisely in many ways what my own campus represents. We are, as I fondly call it, a model UN. Students come from many, many places around the globe. We're very diverse, and I'm deeply committed to the concept that work of the future will be global in nature. And the only way we're going to be successful in being doing this global work is with the good work that's being done through this mediation concept. So I'll start with my remarks, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time, because I know you're busy, to contribute to this. But most important, I thank you for your work, because I think it's helping to move our globe together and in a positive way. So thank you again, and let me begin. As you know, mediation is a soft diplomacy tool that supports global business and foreign direct investment. It's a pathway to resolve disputes and create a value proposition between stakeholders. The IDR over the last 6 years has created a global outreach through the establishment of mediation as a business tool in new and innovative ways that reflect the values of New Jersey City University to be local but act global. Our university is situated in the most diverse city in the United States. It offers many opportunities for our students and for our globally strategy partners. And by the way, this is a goal of our state, but it's also the goal of this university, is to really think about how we can connect more powerfully across the globe. Over the last several years, the IDR is built under the leadership of Professor Weiss of a connecting of bridges and borders model utilizing mediation that forges connectivity for our academic and professional community to come together and build entrepreneurship and innovation culture through the international business, legal, and academic community. We're proud of these partnerships that span the globe, both within the IDR and throughout many other programs within our university offers. Today, we have many sectors supporting this program that help forge opportunities and forums that foster relationships and help the next generation of future leaders to be better global citizens. I am proud to see so many international sectors brought together under a mediation umbrella for the advancement of a better global environment. Many of the countries and stakeholders present in the discussion today are examples of how bridges and borders can foster real positive opportunities, even in the midst of this current global pandemic that we all face together. And as an aside, I think it will be a global solution that will help us get past this pandemic and the economic issues around it. Looking forward to the collaborative environment is a key for the continued improvement of humanity, and mediation certainly plays an important role in this process. NJCU, through the IDR, has engaged with many countries and is proud of all the partnerships that we are able to establish for the betterment of society and to improve the quality of life for all of us. I'm honored today to see this distinguished panel of speakers coming together from important regions in the world to discuss mediation and improve global business activity, even in challenging times. I want to thank each panelist and the International Mediation Institute for their important role that brings this program together. The IDR bringing us forward in what we call a global village of connecting and forging new possibilities. As the program discusses different perspectives on mediation to improve trade and the investment, I think of our current Hungarian partnerships with NJCU through the IDR, which has forged important work in international trade conferences, student collaborations, academic contributions, field work and lectures, and entrepreneurship and innovation outreach. We have a new business on our campus thanks to our collaboration that began just a year ago with our work in Budapest. I see this beacon of light and outreach to be a new era wherein universities like NJCU can help contribute toward the vital economic and academic progress of global trading systems. I also want to recognize the other participating countries of the Republic of Georgia, which I have visited, Croatia, which I have visited, and the great state of New Jersey as a key component on this narrative. This global village program already has had far-reaching impact with over 20,000 views on social media and is expected to reach many more thousands around the world as it is rebroadcast throughout the ecosystems of the sponsors and participants that gave their time and support to own this vision of connectivity.
Thank you, Dr. Henderson. We have our global panelists coming up right now. So first, I would like to introduce Laura Skillin. She is our moderator today, and she is the Executive Director of the International Mediation Institute, which has partnered with us today to present this fabulous event. For those of you who are not familiar with the International Mediation Institute, it is an extremely important organization in the field of mediation, helping to develop mediation and define the public policy framework for early dispute resolution throughout the world. In fact, the International Mediation Institute is the only organization setting practice standards for mediators on a global scale, and the only organization promoting mediation as a dispute resolution and deal-making process globally. Executive Director Laura Skillin's mediation training is focused on transformative approaches and peace mediation. She is an Australian native who is presently based in Brussels, and she's finishing up her doctoral research on blame and polarization in politics and what to do about it. Laura, we could probably have a week-long program on political blame and polarization right now. So I'm very happy that we're discussing mediation today. Laura also has a master's degree in European Union External Relations. Not surprisingly, she is dedicated to finding consensual solutions, empathy, and inclusivity. Laura, we thank you for all of your hard work promoting mediation around the world and for collaborating with the IDR to present this amazing program. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Felicia, for the lovely introduction. And thank you as well to IDR for helping us with this program today, not to mention to our fantastic speakers and VIP. But you're not here to hear from me, so I would like to introduce our first speaker for the day, Judge Srdjan Shimak, who is the judge of the High Commercial Court of the Republic of Croatia, the president of the Croatian Mediation Association, an accredited mediator in addition to being a highly experienced arbitrator, a JAMS International Fellow, a member of many prestigious mediation panels, and is someone who sees mediation as generating the possibilities for change. So welcome, Srdjan.
Thank you very much, Laura. Hi, everybody. I would like to start with the thought that if we want to secure appropriate tools for the business people to solve their business disputes, legal system and legal profession should offer them something different. Actually, we need to understand first what does mean to be a business or to be in a business. Managing business is very complex, and the aim is to create a new value. And on the way to create a new value, businesses expose themselves to various kinds of risks. And besides of the business risks, from my opinion, business people do not need any additional risk coming from conflicts and business disputes, especially in a legal arena, which is very, very hard for everybody. Risk in litigation, somebody said, is 6 times bigger for business people than their risks on open market. Can you imagine that? Business definitely, like David said, count on risk. But on the other side, they want certainty, they want control, and they cannot find control in litigation or arbitration. Mediation offers business people full control over the process and over the outcome in their disputes. And mediation is actually, from my experience, which I believe so much, is risk-free for business people. Mediation actually is not an alternative of courts, but alternative of failed negotiation. Many people forget that, and they just jumped to the litigation when negotiation failed. Business people negotiate because they can achieve better results with negotiation than without them. And they mediate because they can achieve a better result with mediation than in negotiation, direct negotiation. You know, conflict is a choice, and the way of solving conflicts is also a choice. So litigation is a choice, mediation is a choice, and most businesses today do not pay enough attention to their conflicts, and they manage them poorly or not at all. And I would like to ask everybody, what is a really added value of litigation? Despite we need courts, we need litigation, but not for all disputes, not for all people. And litigation is really something like a risk out of the control. Nobody can control a litigation or court decision, except maybe judges. And today, dealing with the conflicts and the disputes only in litigation or arbitration is kind of synonymous for unreasonable business affairs. So in litigation or arbitration, business people lose what they care the most: control over their business, their lives. So business people too, like all other people, crave for the tools with which they can control over their lives, their businesses, and their disputes. You know, any kind of lawsuit is a declaration of the war. It is the beginning of the war, and it creates a big obstacle towards the solution of dispute. And what does really mean to achieve success in litigation or arbitration? Victory over the former business partner. You know, winning is not the best way of doing business. With the win in litigation, actually the winners stay alone in a ruined relationship. And you know, the only victory in any conflict is solution, not victory. Business people very often confuse a good legal solution with a good solution for them. And because of that, they very often choose litigation. I like to send them a message and say, please do not try to win the former business partner when it is not necessary. Instead of asking yourself, can we win? Try to ask yourself, what can we do to make the conflict or dispute disappear, to go away? And you know, every war ends with peace. So let's start with peace first. And mediation is really great tool to make peace possible between conflicted business partners. Mediation makes possible conflict and disputes to become certain, to become manageable, to become predictive. You
Thank
can
you for
have
those wise words, Srdjan. I particularly appreciated your emphasis on mediation actually being a really risk-free alternative for people in business. And I do have a couple of questions for you though. And if anyone else has any questions, I encourage them to pop them into the Q&A part and we'll address them at the end. So Dan, I mean, why do you think that more business people don't recognize mediation as such an efficient tool for resolving disputes?
So yes, it is always somewhere in my mind. I'm trying to explore that. Some of them are these. So still most of the business
Sorry,
people,
did you hear me?
still most of them do not know enough about mediation.
Srdjan, do I have you?
Do you hear me? Okay. So they don't know enough. They feel they are right and they don't want to show themselves they are weak. They have a competitive mentality and they want to fight with the enemy, which is not in front of them. They treat business problems as legal problems. Actually, it is not legal problems, but business problems. They try to confuse good legal solution with the good solution for them. Very rarely legal solution is good for the business people. And they are very often, business people are very often so busy and they make a big mistake and they leave a conflict to be solved without their direct participation in it. When you have a decision makers in a conflict or a business dispute, the solution is so fast and possible.
Fantastic.
Thank
And
you.
so, I mean, you yourself were a judge. So what do you think that judges can do in courtrooms during any litigation or during a dispute resolution to actually help business disputants to embrace mediation?
Oh yes, I like that question. You know, judges can do a lot. You know, this is a new time, and the judiciary and judges can adapt to the new realities, to the new business environment. So the main role of the judge is not just to decide about the case by the law, but to offer help to all disputants, even in the courtroom, to find the best solution for them. This is a new role and the new movement, and behind that is give back responsibility for the solution of disputes to their creators. So parties and disputants are responsible for their disputes and their result. And judges, when they decide to come to court, should do everything to help them decide by themselves or find agreement or court settlement or refer them to the mediation, because any decision rendered by myself as a judge means the end of the business relationship.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you so much, Srdjan. That was a really fantastic presentation.
You're welcome, Laura.
Thank you. And I would now like to introduce our next speaker, Georgi Svetsadze from the Republic of Georgia. He's an associate law professor at, I'm sorry for my pronunciation, Tbilisi State University. He's a practicing lawyer and managing partner of a law firm, a certified mediator, and founder of a National Center for ADR. So thank you so much for joining us today, Georgi.
Thank you, Laura. I'm really delighted, and it's an honor for me to be part of this wonderful program. And I wanted to thank Professor Weiss personally for this opportunity. And I want to share with you my excitement with his ideas and programs like Connecting Bridges and Borders, which I think is one of the inspiring ideas I have ever heard for the last 10 years. And we had a lot of talks about it. And I think events like this can contribute and can help to encourage people to use not only mediation, but to change the mindset and the lifestyle of business, especially business, because as you know, mediation touches every part of our life, but this is extremely important for business. And I also want to thank Srdjan for excellent points made about the advantages of mediation. And he mentioned one of the advantages, and you can hear about it in all mediation classes or courtrooms when the judge explains the parties what are the advantages for mediation. That one of the key points here is the full control of the parties over the outcome of mediation. But maybe I can surprise you to say that sometimes this point serves as a big impediment for mediation, especially in the region where I come from, and the space of former Soviet Union. So Georgia is a republic from former Soviet Union, and there are also other 14 countries having sharing the same history with us. And having this inheritance here gives me a good argument to say that sometimes taking responsibility is a big fear for people. So sometimes they just want to entrust or transfer their problems to judge or an arbitrator, and they want them to decide, and they are not ready to decide for themselves. So this is the main problem in countries like Georgia, when you tell the business that they have to take control. Maybe this is somehow a paradox from the American perspective, but I can assure you that when talking to Georgian businesses, that they have to take their cases from the court, and they have to take the responsibility and to answer the questions from the other party or from the mediator, and make a final decision what is acceptable for them and what is not. Sometimes they are very afraid of it. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable to take this kind of responsibility and to say final yes or no to the conditions which are offered to them. Sometimes they just want to hide from this responsibility, hide themselves, which is, of course, once more, a very strange issue, but people have fear over responsibility. They don't want to be responsible for their decisions. And this is true especially for businesses which deal with myriad number of disputes, and which is cultural for them. So big businesses, when they have lots of consumer disputes, when you sell something that is very widespread and you have a lot of complaints from your consumers, then you're getting a lot of disputes and court cases. And sometimes these businesses feel comfortable to work on the maybe prevention design, or to work on the complaints design, and to insert the mediation tool in in contact with their consumers. So this sounds very complicated for them. So this is one of the big impediments, I would say, from my perspective, where the CEOs who are very comfortable in their offices, they just, of course, they are determined and they are assigned for such decisions, but sometimes they don't feel comfortable to make these kind of decisions every day on an everyday basis. So when you have 3,000 disputes with your consumers, it means that you have to deal with them individually, and you have to take and make your decision individually for 3,000 cases. And sometimes this is not comfortable for people who are dealing with those disputes. And I think this is one of the biggest impediments for Georgian companies to make this decision and to go for mediation. And this is the problem I face every day when talking to them, trying to convince them to use this, this tool. Another problem for big companies regionally, I would say, in Caucasus, in Middle Asia, in Ukraine, also in Baltic countries. I have good contacts with my colleagues, lawyers and mediators in those countries, and I can say maybe on their behalf also that the same problem exists in the region and in the post-Soviet country, and I strongly believe the same was happening also in East Europe maybe 10 years ago. And Srdjan can also agree that some things are very similar between the countries like Balkan countries and Caucasus countries. And these problems still remain, unfortunately. There are some countries which are more successful in this, but still the big companies who are dealing with big number of disputes, they like this ordinary way to deal with their disputes. So the traditions is a very cultural thing in the region. So they like to deal with the disputes traditionally, in a traditional way. And as you know, the traditional way is litigation. So they understand courts are delayed, courts are overcrowded, expenses are more, but still they know this ordinary way of resolving disputes. And of course, the biggest problem is what we do. And a good friend of mine and a good mediator in the US gave me this advice 4 years ago. If you want to approach big companies to get mediation done by them, you have to educate their general counsels. So we have organized several trainings for general counsels in order to educate them why it is good for them personally, because this is a very personal issue. This is also a cultural thing. So first they think why it's comfortable for them personally, and then of course the next question comes how they can somehow sell this to their companies, that the mediation is the first tool of using the dispute resolution tools. So these general counsels, of course, they are also an old style. Sometimes they don't believe or don't trust in things you're offering to them. And from this perspective, it's very important to have a right way to approach them and to convince them. So another point which is very important for my perspective, and which is directly related to the title of our event today, how mediation is related to foreign direct investment. And this is very important from Georgian perspective, that we push when we represent the investors who are investing in Georgia or also in other countries of the region, to push them to use mediation or MEDAR clause, which now has become very popular in Georgia. When mediation begins and if it is not successful, the arbitration comes into play. So these kind of tools and settings are becoming more popular now in Georgia. Of course, then they push the state, which is another signatory of the contract, the investment contract between the investor and the state, to use these tools in their everyday business. And of course, 10 years ago, it was maybe unbelievable to somehow convince the state to go for mediation, but things now are changed, and Georgia now is for mediation, so to say, and one of the pro-mediation countries in the region, because Georgia has become one of the signatories, the original signatories of a Singapore Convention, and also adopted a new law on mediation in January 2020. So the law is brand new, and we are now developing this legal framework, which allows us to develop more and to do more in mediation. And then last point I wanted to touch and to share with you is that educating and building a professional society, which I think is very important, because even if we would be able to have lots of cases, maybe 1,000 cases a month or something like this is not possible now in Georgia because we don't have enough professionals. So the professional society is quite small. And this is one of the key issues, I think, and I, as a professor who teaches mediation at the Tbilisi State University, can tell you that this is one of the biggest impediments, because the old-fashioned lawyers are very reluctant to be in this new profession. And on the other hand, the new generation does not have enough trust from business to be somehow a part of new business deals, including mediation. So I think these 3 points are the most important things, which, from my perspective, which on the one hand impedes developing mediation tools and using mediation settings for indirect investment issues and in business issues. And on the other hand, as you know, every problem and every impediment also includes the perspective. And these perspectives, which I strongly believe is really huge now globally, will help us also and everybody who is now on this meeting to do his or her best to develop mediation in the future. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Georgi. That was really interesting for the insight into the region. And so you mentioned that Georgia is one of the most pro-mediation countries in the region, and indeed Georgia is a signatory to the new UN Singapore Convention on the Enforceability of Mediation. I mean, what new perspectives or opportunities do you think this will offer to Georgia?
Yes, this is really one of the questions which is very intensively discussed now in Georgia among professionals. And I remember the big promotion of Singapore Convention in summer 2019 when the convention was signed, and there was a live on the Facebook page of Minister of Justice of Georgia when she was signing on behalf of Georgian government the Singapore Convention. On the other hand, this gives us an opportunity to explain to the investors, and I, as a lawyer, practicing business lawyer, about 90% of our clients are foreigners. And when we explain them that this alternative is already in force in Georgia, and Georgia is even a signatory of a convention which is now in force and which can now be used in supporting mediation, this is a big advantage for us, for Georgian lawyers, to convince them to use this tool and to decide in favor of Georgia when trying somehow to diversify their investments in different countries of the region. So I think this plus the new law gives us a good opportunity to accelerate the development of mediation in Georgia. Hello, Laura?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Loki, again. And thank you for joining us today. So I would now like to move to our third speaker, Richard Dean, based in the US and in New Jersey. He's the former president of the New Jersey State Bar Association. He's a highly experienced lawyer, arbitrator, mediator, trainer, and facilitator, and served as a neutral in more than 1,500 cases in the US federal and state courts. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be able to speak with all of you today about the perspective we have in the United States, particularly as we see it in New Jersey, on the importance of mediation in cross-border transactions in the global business community. We all know business growth is based on maintaining and enhancing and developing strong relationships. In order to preserve these relationships when disputes arise, it is important to have options for resolving those disputes that minimize the potential adverse impact on the relationship. As you've heard from the other speakers, and as I will attest, mediation is such an option. I come from a background in the construction industry. The construction industry for many, many years has relied on binding arbitration, and it's become widely accepted as a fair, fast, and cost-effective dispute resolution technique. However, the industry has been a leader in this country and throughout the world in other creative dispute resolution solutions, including mediation. A mediation step is now included and has been for 20-some years in the dispute resolution provisions in most construction contracts. The industry has embraced mediation and sees the value in it. Industry leaders recognize that guided negotiation can help parties maintain a relationship while they're resolving their disputes. In the international arena, again, there's a long history of parties relying on arbitration to resolve business disputes. Arbitration has some distinct advantages in global business. It is a well understood and consistent process that reduces the risk and uncertainty of relying on the varying judicial systems throughout the world. While arbitration is an important tool, it does not provide some of the advantages of mediation that some of the other speakers have already addressed. Mediation in cases where resolution can be obtained between the parties. The flexibility of mediation allows the parties to retain control of the process. Arbitration is more flexible than litigation in terms of the process, but at the end of the day, the decision and the outcome is not controlled by the parties. Mediation focuses more on the future, more on where we go from where we are, and allows the parties to craft outcomes to enhance their relationships with a much broader range of options and solutions than are available in either litigation or arbitration. When parties are unable to directly negotiate solutions to disputes, a skilled mediator can help the parties to reach a satisfactory resolution. Even at the outset of a business relationship, parties may use mediation to assist in negotiating the terms and the structure of the relationship. This signals a desire to work amicably together and enhances the opportunity for all to be successful together. An important component of any dispute resolution mechanism must be the ability of a party to enforce the result. International arbitration awards are enforceable through the New York Convention. For parties to accept mediation as a useful tool, there needs to be a mechanism to enforce the terms of the mediated agreement. Certainly, certainty of performance of the responsibilities and obligations assumed by the parties is vital. The new Singapore Convention, which has been mentioned, is designed to provide for the enforcement of mediated agreements. It may eventually become, in the international mediation world, as important as the New York Convention is in the international arbitration arena. The use of mediation in the United States is more common, has been in use longer, and is more accepted than in many other parts of the world. That is particularly true in New Jersey. where our courts have relied on mediation of court cases as an important tool in resolving disputes in New Jersey for more than 25 years. The New Jersey court system enjoys wide respect in the United States for its important work in many areas, including advancing alternative dispute resolution techniques. Not only in the court, but in the legislature and in the administration. Recently, New Jersey has taken an important step in developing a solution that achieves certainty and performance under international mediation agreements. Through the work of a number of interested groups, including one of our hosts, the Institute for Dispute Resolution at New Jersey City University, New Jersey now has a law that provides the international community with the ability to enforce settlements achieved through mediation. The law, it's a mouthful, the New Jersey International Arbitration, Mediation, and Conciliation Act, is designed to promote international trade in New Jersey by making it easier for international businesses to resolve their disputes through mediation. The law provides that mediated agreements can be converted into arbitration awards that can be enforced through the New York Convention. The law has been in effect since 2017 and permits the establishment of alternative dispute resolution centers to provide arbitration and mediation services in international business disputes. Again, through the efforts of the IDR and others, New Jersey has the Global Mediation Exchange Center, which is a provider of arbitration and mediation services to international parties that gives them enforceable agreements and awards. The center, I believe, is the first of its kind, at least in this country, includes rules and procedures for parties to begin an arbitration proceeding, then stay that proceeding and engage in mediation. And if an agreement is reached, return to arbitration to have the agreement entered as a consent award. That award then is enforceable under the New York Convention. While this technique, arbitration followed by mediation followed by arbitration, is not new, the Global Mediation Exchange Center provides parties with a flexible and efficient procedure for a mediated resolution, combined with the enforceability of an arbitration award. In closing, I think that the title of this program, Building the Future of Global Business, Enhancing Growth and Investment Through Mediation, really sums up the promise that you've heard from others today of mediation as an important, evolving and important tool for the international business community. Again, I want to thank the sponsors of this program for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you today, and I thank all of you for your kind attention.
Great. Thank you so much, Richard, for that fascinating and very on-point presentation. So I do have a question for you.
Yes.
I mean, what are the major differences between the New Jersey Act of the Mouthful and the Singapore Convention?
Well, although the New Jersey Act is relatively new, the process is in place for people to be able to utilize it now. The Singapore Convention is even newer, and it's going to take some time for a real understanding and a real use of that to be able to be relied on in large part to the extent the New York Convention is approved in hundreds of countries, and the Singapore Convention may eventually be so. But the mediators I've talked to about the Singapore Convention are concerned about certain of the requirements. Some of the provisions in the Singapore Convention are designed more or less to match the provisions in the New York Convention. The mediators are concerned about some limitation on the flexibility of the process. Mediation, to the extent that it provides almost unlimited flexibility depending on the needs of the parties, there's a certain structure that is required for enforcing mediation agreements under the Singapore Convention that may limit some of that flexibility. Another concern mediators have is that mediators have representations and responsibilities, including being a signatory to the agreement. The mediators have to validate, if you will, that there was a real mediation that was conducted. This raises issues about you know, the extent of their involvement. It raises issues about privilege and confidentiality that mediators typically enjoy in this country and in many other countries as well. The last concern I heard from mediators you know, is that challenges to the enforcement for alleged mediator misconduct, again, may embroil the mediator in post-mediation activities that I certainly as a mediator wouldn't want to get involved in. But I think that the convention and the New Jersey Act are certainly compatible. And I think the advantage of the New Jersey Act is it's readily available now to be used with disputes between any countries that are signatory to the New York Convention.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much again, Rick, for sharing your time. And we
You're
will
very
move on to now our fourth panelist from Hungary, Eva Inzelt. Sorry, Richard. Now, Eva is the president of the Budapest Chamber of Commerce and Industry's Conciliation Board. She is an assistant law professor and a trained mediator who has coached many successful mediation teams, which we'd love to see. And she is someone who sees mediation and conciliation as cost-effective, time-saving, and business-friendly. So she's very welcome here. Thank you, Eva.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and I would like to say good afternoon or even good morning, which part of the world you are, all the audience who are here. And this is a real great honor for me to be here and to be one of the presenters today. So thank you all the organizers and supporters to make it possible to have this amazing event today. So, as you already mentioned, I'm working as an assistant professor at the Eötvös Loránd University, as well as I'm the president of the Budapest Conciliation Board. So today I would like to give you an overview about the alternative dispute resolution system in Hungary, because I believe that ADR techniques are great tools for local and global businesses, and I'm working day by day to make more awareness for it. We encounter conflicts in all areas of our lives, including economy and business. Many people still treat disagreements as a negative phenomenon, although we know that this is often debates that lead to an innovative solution, for example, legal or technical one. Conflict is a risk factor in the life of companies. However, the importance is to solve it. The big question, how we can solve it. All my colleagues today in this panel try to answer this question as well in the presentation. So I would like to give you a so-called Hungarian or my point of view. First of all, I would like to describe in a nutshell that how the ADR system in Hungary looks like. Of course, we can talk about commercial mediation, arbitration, general and financial conciliation, and court mediation. Because of the lack of time I have today, I would like to focus on court mediation and conciliation. The court mediation is something that maybe it's not available all around the world, so that's the reason why I pick up this topic for today, for our international audience. So court mediation has been available in Hungarian courts since 2012. It is also available in pending cases in the framework of judicial and non-judicial proceedings. The court mediation is a non-judicial procedure. At the court, judges and officials of the court with special qualification shall conduct the mediation process. In the case of an agreement, the parties shall be entitled to suspend the payment of duty depending on in which stage the agreement ends to the process. So it seems to be that it could be an effective method for companies in order to take their decision in enforcement. Conciliation Board has a competence to resolve consumer disputes out of court. The responsibility of the Conciliation Board is to attempt to facilitate the conclusion of a settlement agreement between consumers and companies that settles the dispute. If this attempt is inconclusive, the conciliation board shall adopt a decision to ensure simply, fast, effective, and cost-efficient enforcement of consumer rights. The type of the decisions, if the agreement is not possible, it could be a rejection, recommendation, and obligation. The procedures of the conciliation board last 90 days, which can be extended once for an extra 30 days. So altogether, it should be ended within 120 days. During the conciliation process, no legal representative is needed, and there is no fee to file a case. Why it is useful for companies to participate in conciliation proceedings? The agreement is in the interest of both parties. They could shape its content. They do not transfer the decision-making power and responsibility over their case to a third party, and as a result, they will be satisfied with it. As well as confidentiality has an important role to use ADR tools for companies. According to a really interesting research conducted by PricewaterhouseCoopers and Europa University in Frankfurt in 2006, German companies typically choose court in case of conflicts. They repeated this research 10 years later, and in 2016, conciliation and mediation became the most common form to solve their conflicts. According to the German companies' arguments, it is because the alternative procedure were in line with their company's philosophy, saved significant costs, and provided them with a confidential procedure. ADR techniques like mediation and conciliation is an excellent tool for avoiding litigation and can also contribute to the development of conflict management culture in a society. Commercial mediation and conciliation can be one of the pillars of a fair, long-term, and sustainable business relationship, which can stabilize and strengthen a certain economy and can increase a country's GDP. In 2016, the Budapest Chamber of Commerce and Industry conducted a research in which more than 4,000 volunteer members responded. According to their answers, approximately 80% knew what is mediation, so they have ever heard this notion. However, only a few percent had ever used this method. In line with these results, I think more effective marketing campaigns as well as social involvement would be needed to give more awareness of different ADR techniques in Hungary. Luckily, during our conciliation board procedure, I can see that this kind of marketing and more awareness of this kind of techniques can be visible. So thank you for your kind attention.
Great, thank you, Eva. And so I have a couple of questions for you, but there's one I'd like to start with, because here you mentioned mediation and conciliation. And of course, these terms mean different things in different parts of the world. So in Hungary, what is the difference between these two?
So you mean mediation and conciliation? Because I haven't got your question clearly. Okay, so I mean, conciliation is a different...
Sorry, my internet is a bit playing up.
Yeah. So it is between mediation and conciliation. Am I right? Okay. So yeah, these two terms really differ from each other, because in mediation, of course, okay, let's start with the similarities. So the similarities are that there is an independent third party who try to help you figure out how can solve your disputes. However, in mediation, this third party is not in the decision-making procedure, so it's totally independent. In conciliation, looks like that it's starting as a mediation procedure. However, if the conciliator could not facilitate an agreement, after that point, he or she need to make a decision. So the first stage of the conciliation process is a kind of mediation. However, if there is no settlement, there will be a decision by the conciliator. So he or she should judge the case on legal standards.
No, thank you very much for the clarification, because we do get questions about these terms and the difference in different places.
Thank you.
And so what is your personal experience with different firms' attitudes to cooperation in mediation and/or conciliation processes then?
Yeah, according to my conciliation practice, of course, according to the Hungarian consumer protection law, they need to, so somehow they forced to be cooperative in our procedures. But I think that the vast majority of the companies is really open-minded and try to cooperate if there is a significant problem, or if there is a real case of the breach of the contract which they have between the consumers and companies. So as far as I see, they are trying to be incorporated our culture, corporate culture, the different ADR tools.
Great. And so lastly then, I mean, what are the most typical case types you see at Budapest Conciliation Board?
Yeah, we have really various type of services and products situations. So for example, if you are buying an electronic devices, any type of clothes or shoes and so on. Or even if you are, for example, built a house and you can have some conflicts with the construction company, you can file a case in the conciliation board, as well as because of this situation this year about the coronavirus situation, we need to deal with a lot of cases which in connection with travel agencies or any other issues when we need to see that it is a force majeure or not.
Thank you very much, Eva.
Thank you very much.
Now, because we're still waiting on the minister's presence, so what I'm actually going to do is we've had a few questions come in the Q&A section, and so I think there's a couple which could be directed to some of our fantastic participants for today. So first of all, then, so we've got a question here from Barbara Wecker, who asks, how has the coronavirus pandemic affected the practice and the interest in pursuing mediation in lieu of arbitration or litigation in your country? And has your approach to encouraging mediation changed under the current conditions? So Eva, would you like to take a look at that question first?
Yes, of course. So if we can see, I mean, what I can say according to my experience at the Budapest Conciliation Board, of course, this situation which we already in. So the coronavirus situation affected companies really well. So as far as I see, they try to settle their dispute with consumers. However, sometimes they have really lack of money. So it's really hard sometimes to having an agreement between each other, because they usually would like to postpone to pay back the money for the services or other products. However, the consumers would like to give the money back promptly. So it's usually a big tension between the two parties' interest. But as far as I see, they are trying to do our best. So, and what they can in this economic situation.
Okay, thank you. And now, Srdjan, how about yourself? It's been 2 years since we've heard from you. How have coronavirus has changed mediation aspects in your country?
So, great question too. You know, at the beginning, all of us were kind of afraid, worried, feel uncertain about the future. And very fastly, me and my colleagues, and not only me, but many people, especially I suppose from business, jumped to the new reality and tried to adapt. And we, especially in the Croatian Mediation Association, we started to learn new things, new tools, online mediation, online education, webinars, new kind of educations and new topics. And I found that very interesting, and I feel kind and enriched with that, and I look toward the future of mediation in very positively. But all of us have to do a lot of work in that direction. And I used to say that mediation will not happen by itself. It is very connected with what we as mediators do. And as the aim of this webinar is, business people are amazingly important for this, because when they recognize mediation for their own interest, in which they can solve their huge problems, which are unavoidable in business, and when they find that they can solve that problems within one day, very often, half of our mediations, 50% of them, are ended in one single day. And very often after that, business disputants continue with their business relationships. That is their interest, not disputing.
Okay. And so then thinking about the actual promotion aspects of mediation, we've got a really interesting question here, or part comment, part question, from editor-in-chief at CCO magazine and representing the American Hungarian Chamber of Commerce. And they point out that mediation is not only needed in business when a crisis situation arises, but often it's needed to establish business relationships as well, so even before problems. So they've got the question for all the speakers. I mean, how could we promote mediation more effectively among business people? And so I'll start with Georgi, because we haven't heard from him for a while.
Okay, I think, thank you very much for this question, which I think is the most difficult one from my perspective, because this is the question we are thinking all the time. How can we approach business in a better way to convince them to do, to make their own decisions for mediation? And I tried several mechanisms, so to say, and I can share you my experience. So from the beginning, we were thinking that like conferences in fancy hotel rooms and hotel conference rooms, or communications with them in public would somehow bring a result. And then we saw that this is not working at all. Of course, everybody is polite. They come when you invite them. They listen very carefully, but then nothing happens. So then we change the strategy and begin the individual relations, individual negotiations with all businesses. And I think these brought first results, which of course were not that much impressive as one could expect from the very beginning. But I think the most important lesson which we learned here is that to understand the real risks, which is hidden somewhere. So no company likes, no CEO likes to speak publicly about the risks they have. So we have to somehow open it out and somehow inspire a trust to get real information about their problems related to their disputes, and then to do your best to tailor your service, your mediation services to the needs they have. So I think, and I strongly believe, there is no such classical mediation tool which can be universal for all disputes and all companies. There are some things, for example, what we do for several companies, I can even be reluctant to call the process itself as a mediation. So sometimes you are just using a mediation tool, some principles to help the parties in the best way. So I think there is no universal advice which can help you to understand business and to make business happy with mediation. It needs a lot of works which should be done confidentially and individually with decision makers in business. This is my perspective.
Okay. I think that's some fantastic insights. So thank you so much, Georgi. And just turning as well, really focusing on those upstream type uses of mediation. So in the establishing of business relationships, I mean, Richard, I'm aware that there's more attention being given to this in the US nowadays. I mean, in your experience, I mean, what have you witnessed in terms of really promoting this use of mediation in the establishment of business relationships? Has that been your experience at all?
It is starting to happen more frequently now. It's not growing at a fantastic pace. I know in the construction field where I spend most of my time, you know, in the US, business people reach broad parameters of deals and then lawyers write up the details in the contracts. So a lot of the negotiation is really between or among the lawyers if there's multiple parties. One of the things that I know neutrals can provide a lot of help in is at the outset of a relationship, making sure that the parties understand effective communication with each other. Make sure they understand what their responsibilities are under the contract. It's really, and this gets into team building and really creating a business relationship that relies on honest admission. You know, people understand what their responsibilities are. Many of the construction disputes that I arbitrate, you know, the biggest problem is that people didn't have the same understanding of their responsibilities, and that led to disputes that led to all kinds of problems. But I think at the outset of a relationship, whether it's officially a mediator or not, probably it's not, but some other neutral person who can help the parties work out on a going forward basis how the relationship can best be continued and maintained. The other thing that I have seen a lot of in agreements is that there is a mediator appointed at the beginning of a relationship who any party can call on at any time for a quick, you know, to quickly bring the parties together on an issue and see if they can solve it before it gets to be a bigger issue, number one. certainly before it would be the kind of an issue that would lead to arbitration. So that's kind of where I've seen it, other than once a dispute has arisen.
Thank you. Now we have a question here for both of our professors here. And so this is for Officer Eva and for Georgi. What role do you think that higher education can play in terms of peaceful conflict resolution? And how can you actually enhance interest in learning about this?
Thank you very much. I think this is a really good question, and it's really important. So, because I do believe that we have really, as university professors, we have a really big responsibility to teach the ADR techniques for the next generation. So that's the reason why I'm started roughly 10 years ago to have ADR curriculum at my university in Hungary, as well as I'm training Hungarian law students to participate in the International Chamber of Commerce International Commercial Mediation Competition, so they can see that how mediation can look like in real life, as well as to be a part of a great event and to get to know distinguished professors and well-known practitioners in that field. So I think that not even just the higher education, however, maybe earlier we need to, during the high school education, we need to teach students and children to how to handle conflicts in general and how to become alternative dispute resolution techniques in their life or in a society culture, which is really important, I think.
I think, just from my Georgian perspective, the education, the higher education has the decisive role in developing mediation. So now the universities in Georgia and the university centers are the main players for mediation, and students and the master students who are working very actively in mediation clinics are, I think, a big hope for mediation in Georgia. And I know that something similar is happening in neighboring countries. So I think for the new generation of mediators, and as I've already mentioned, we do not have the old generation of mediators. So it's very important for mediation development that the universities and the higher education centers work in a proper way and push forward the idea of ADR and mediation, especially to develop this industry at all. So I can hardly imagine how can we develop mediation without the mediation centers, which were developed for a couple of years ago in different universities, including Tbilisi State University, where I teach, where the center was created with support of USAID in 2011. And the center really did a great job for promoting and educating people. The role of education perspective is huge, and this can play a very important role for future of mediation. Eva?
Okay, so we've got another question for the panelists at large here from Rod Bosajur, who asks about how we can encourage mediation between parties when actually one of their major issues is a difference in culture. So, I mean, we've got people from a range of different countries and cultures here. So, I mean, what do you think our approach should be? And let's start with Srdjan.
Okay. You know, people used to say that something like with our people in our country, it's not possible to have a mediation. Another country say the similar. All humans are the same. So the mediation is the process of understanding each other. So no matter how different are they, relating on a religion or ethnicity or gender, of course that people do not understand each other enough. But mediation is the only process from my experience. You know, I'm a judge and I know very well a difference between litigation and mediation and negotiation. In mediation, you have a third neutral, trusted person who doesn't take sides and help them navigate through the difficult conversations coming from the sense that they are right. You know, all of us like too much to be right, but our sense of being right is not a measure of punctuality, you know. So the idea of mediation is tell us your different sides of story and please listen and try to understand the reasons why the other side think differently. And when you come to the point that you get attention from the other side with whom you do not agree at the beginning, and get her or him listen you and understand you. Understanding is a highest level of communication. At that moment, cooperation begins, because if you put your efforts to understand me, now I am ready to listen and understand your different views. And when we understand each other, which doesn't mean we agree to each other, that is the point when human approach starts and cooperation starts, and we are ready to make a move from the first positions in which we were imprisoned. And no matter how different we are, in that way we can find the solution in between of two righteous opinions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Srdjan. Thank you.
You're welcome, Laura.
Let's hear from Eva then. What is your take on these sort of intercultural or cross-cultural concerns?
Yeah, thank you very much. When this type of question arises, I always like to use the quote from Hofstede, and he said that cultural diversity makes an organization stronger. So he was talking about different co-workers, different co-workers in a certain organization from different cultures. But I agree with Srdjan that during a mediation session, of course, this kind of cultural diversity can be an advantage rather than a disadvantage, because we can ask the parties to tell that how they are feel themselves. Maybe this kind of attitude or feeling is a part of their cultural heritage, so they can understand each other, and they can understand not just their personal feelings, but their cultural differences as well. And if we can go through this kind of process, I think we can, and we can stronger the relationship between the parties, rather than we can see cultural differences as a disadvantage in that case, or maybe something that can close down a session.
Laura, would you allow me just to two more sentences?
I guess I'll allow you, yes.
So I like an expression somebody said that when we allow ourselves to listen and understand different point of views, different thoughts, and when we confirm to the other side that we understand their thoughts, which were strange for us at the beginning, become part of our thoughts, and they are no more strange as at the beginning. And this is a crucial point to start to cooperate in finding a solution. Thank you very much.
Of course. Now, one very last question before we do start to have to wrap up. And I'd like to ask this question of Richard, actually, given your experience as a neutral in a variety of situations. So Brian Clark asks whether part of the problem with businesses not being keen on mediation, he wonders whether that's because by the time they start to consider it, they're already entrenched and lawyers are involved and want a legal determination. I mean, do you think this is the case, and how do you think we can actually overcome it?
I think, Laura, that in most cases, once a mediator is engaged, there are lawyers involved. I've seen lawyers become much more receptive to and much more effective in mediation in those cases where the lawyers and the parties believe that a mediated solution rather than lengthy litigation or arbitration makes more sense. That's true in a lot of smaller cases where there really isn't the justice, the legal system, people can't afford the legal system in many smaller cases. But in terms of encouraging parties when they're negotiating, again, you can provide in the contract that there will be negotiations amongst the people directly involved in whatever the project is. If that's unsuccessful, you can move that up to higher levels of management, even up to top management, in a very short period of time, and then include in that a mediation component, again, before people are thinking about litigation. Lots of parties, before they start a lawsuit, work through the mediation process and avoid starting the lawsuit altogether. But I think, you know, again, or still, until there's an ability of the business people to understand or to retain control. There was a discussion before about some business people don't want to be responsible for or accountable for the results of the resolution of some of these disputes. And that's very true in even in mediation. You'll see that parties aren't willing to, some mediations are unsuccessful because the parties aren't willing to assume the responsibility of the outcome. They would rather be able to point to someone else and say, it's their decision, it's not mine. But it's a matter of educating the business people about the ability of a mediator to enhance negotiations even before you know, a matter becomes a significant dispute.
I like it. So it's about that really proactive approach to mediation, even for the start of a relationship then, which ties back to what was said earlier. So thank you so much to everyone. Now, I do want to add that we have had some connection problems, and so we won't be able to hear the minister's statement today, for which he apologizes, but we will make sure to send his comments around to all of the attendees later on. And with that, thank you to the panelists, and I will hand this back to Felicia to finish up our event.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you to all of our speakers. This program was excellent. The insights that you have shared from your countries, I think, are extremely valuable to all of us so that we can learn from one another. Because when you mediate, even within your own country, you tend to do so in a vacuum. You're with the parties, attorneys, and you really don't know what other mediators are doing within your own community. So to be able to hear everybody's perspectives from around the globe is really, really enlightening and unbelievably valuable. So I thank you all for participating today, to all of our sponsors, all of our attendees from around the globe. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, NJCU and the IDR team, our steering committee, everybody that came together to put this really unique and incredible program together. So thank you all, and I hope to see you next time. Bye, everybody.